So why is Icarus doomed? Now if you've clicked on this video, that's something that you probably want answered. And to do that, we're going to look at Greek mythology. For the next 6, 7, 8 minutes or so, we're going to explore the myth of Icarus. If you want to learn something, not just about this game, but maybe for all time, about this little aspect of Greek mythology, then keep watching. At the end of all this, I'm going to talk about what does it mean for Icarus, the game, or more specifically, Icarus, the planet. Thank you for clicking on the video, and if you would consider subscribing, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm just a small YouTuber, and it always counts to me. If you want to leave a comment, I will answer. I want to talk to you guys and hear what you think about the stuff that I do. So before we get into the story proper, there are two characters you need to come to know. One is Icarus and the other is Daedalus, and Daedalus is the father of Icarus. Daedalus is famous for being a master craftsman, and when I say master craftsman, that is an understatement. He could make almost magical creations. He was gifted beyond compare. And some of his creations became legendary in Greek mythology. What led to Icarus becoming infamous was actually his father's decisions and creations. So this all takes place on the island of Crete in the Mediterranean. Way back in the day, there was a king, King Minos, who ruled all of Crete. Now, King Minos asked Poseidon to gift him a magnificent snow-white bull as a sign of the god's favour. Now, the agreement was that King Minos would then sacrifice this bull back to Poseidon to honour him, to show his great respect and love of the god. And this is where it all started to fall apart, and a string of events led to the infamous story of Icarus. King Minos just could not sacrifice the white bull. It was simply too beautiful and simply too magnificent. He couldn't do it. And of course, Poseidon, being a god and full of jealousies like they all were, was bloody annoyed. So he decided to punish King Minos. And how did he do that? Well, he made King Minos' wife, Pasiphae, fall in love with this bull. And as you can imagine, being madly in love and physically attracted to a bull, well, it is slightly problematic. So Pasiphae asked Daedalus to help her out. And she asked him specifically to craft her a suit of some sort so she could pretend to be a female cow so this magnificent white bull would mate with her. Yes, it beggars belief, I know. Daedalus agrees, unbelievably so, and builds her this suit. Pasiphae climbs into it, and the magnificent white bull approaches her, and well, I leave the rest to your imagination. But the result, you guessed it, Pasiphae gives birth to a minotaur. Now just imagine trying explaining that to your husband, and worse, it's King Minos. And as you can imagine, King Minos is rightfully very angry, and Poseidon is disgusted that not only was the white bull not sacrificed to him in the first place, but now Pasiphae has mated with it, which should never have been allowed to happen, and created this ungodly beast, the Minotaur. Daedalus, being at fault for enabling this all to happen, is ordered to build an impenetrable labyrinth. And the Minotaur, of course, as we all know, is placed at its centre. But shortly after finishing the labyrinth, King Minos imprisons Daedalus. Now it's a bit unclear where he is imprisoned, but ultimately, one way or the other, he is finally placed within a tower. And of course, for the extra punishment, he's not only placed in there himself, but his son Icarus is placed in the tower with him. Now any normal escape was impossible because the tower was on an island, and King Minos controlled the seas around it, had guards outside of it. There was no way to escape on foot. That was impossible. So Daedalus began to create wings for himself and his son. He made these out of loose feathers, string, and they were all held together with wax that he found and accumulated. These wings were utterly magnificent. However, Daedalus knew the limits of his wings, and he clearly warned Icarus of this. Son, these wings I have made are some of my finest creations, but do not fly too high, because the heat of the sun will melt the wax, nor fly too low, because the sea foam will soak the feathers, and both will lead to your death. So Daedalus and Icarus donned the wings and launched themselves from the great tower and flew into the sky. They passed a number of islands, flew across the seas, looking to escape King Minos's clutches. So Icarus, being young, got caught up in the rapture of the flight, and he soared ever upwards. And as he soared further and further up into the sky, he felt in himself he was getting closer and closer to the gods themselves. And despite Daedalus's shouts of warnings and despair, Icarus flew ever upwards towards the raging sun, and sure enough, the heat of the sun melted the wax on the wings, and the feathers began to fall off like snowflakes. Icarus's wings began to fall apart, and he plummeted to his death. So, why would a planet be called Icarus? Because truthfully, this is hardly a story of success. Well, the traditional morals of the Icarus story is this, and it actually could be read a couple of different ways. Be aware of your ambitions, because sometimes when you take risks, you are too ambitious. This can lead to unexpected consequences, or maybe even you should always find balance with your ego and your gifts. But the way I look at it is, he was given a magnificent gift. It was his to do what he wanted with, but he took it too far. He used the gift beyond the capacity for which it was given, and this led to his death. So, how does this story relate to Icarus, the game itself? And more specifically, the planet which the game is based around? Well, Icarus, the planet, is a planet that has been terraformed by humans. They've gone to this planet, they've commenced terraforming, and more importantly, they have injected life onto the planet by using some sort of biotech, enzymes, DNA, who the hell knows what. They have applied science to create life on the planet. But they have used it either irrationally or with ignorance, because they have not been aware of the exotic material on the planet, which has interfered with their efforts to create a solid platform for life, and essentially Icarus has got out of control. So, applying the moral of the story of Icarus, we as humans have been given the gift of science and technology and the ability to create life. However, we have pushed it and taken it beyond what we should, perhaps, and that ultimately must surely lead to the doom of Icarus. Now, my final thought here now knowing what you know and I know, is that Icarus is a very odd name for a planet because it means destruction and doom and ambition taken too far, which leads to failure. I suspect that the name Icarus is perhaps a nickname for the planet. It wouldn't be its proper name, because when you're going to a planet to commence terraforming, of course, that's when you would actually name the planet, and it would be named something like Genesis or something like that. You wouldn't name it Icarus, because that is a name that carries the meaning of doom and failure. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. I can genuinely say I enjoyed making this video. It's just so good to make videos where you learn something. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have as well. Don't forget to hit the subscription button, always greatly appreciated. And I would love to see you in the next chapter.